Thank you so much, Maury, and I'm not going to take up a lot of time. I am a market researcher and a thought leader in the multicultural marketing space, and I focus on the Black American market. I am passionate and my mission is, and I'm passionate about helping business leaders and society understand the value of Black as a people as well as a market segment. So my focus is more about understanding and less about targeting. I mean, targeting is important because that's what I do when these brands and businesses come to me, but I do want to help them understand the market segment. And so my third book, Let Me Explain Black Again. The first one was What's Black About It. The second one was Black Still Matters in Marketing. And the third one, which is I've got a learning curve, I've gone deeper and broader with this book, is Let Me Explain Black Again. And it's not meant to be punitive, but definitely to help readers explore Black identity and Black language, these 7 blind spots that these business leaders in society has, and talk about cultural shapeshifters, the groups of Black people that are changing the mainstream's cultural norms. So it's all about understanding for me, and I'm very, very passionate about it. And so that's why I'm delighted to be a part of this conversation, Maury, and it's so important. And I thank you again for doing this, and not to be picky on race, but it's important when the white guys show up and start having these conversations. It's very important. Sometimes they say, you're a little too sensitive, Pepper, because you're Black. But when someone like you asks people to join in and have this conversation, it's very, very important. So thank you so much again. I'm delighted to be here. Yeah, those numbers, though, well said, Jean. Those numbers, though, people who mentioned or claim that they are interacting with other people who don't look like them were pretty close. That was startling to me. And Maury and I talked about this a little bit yesterday, and I was wondering if those were aspirational numbers, because I really don't see that happening if we're so divided. So is it hope? Is it aspirational? Is it, I need to answer this in a way that doesn't make me look like I'm a racist. And that could be on both sides of the coin, or that I'm not a bad person. I am hearing a lot from some of the white community that feels they have been underrepresented. They are so done with Black Lives Matter. They feel that their voices have not been heard. So we're seeing this surge of those people, which has caused a widening of the different segments as well. So as you said, Jean, we have work to do. One of the most important insights about understanding Black people and race relations is history. It is the most important insight for marketing, for politics, for religion, just, getting to know your neighbors. It's everything, because our beliefs and behavior ladder back up to this history. But with this history, there's a lot of pain and there's a lot of shame associated with our history. And so people would rather just not talk about it. It makes people uncomfortable. People say it's divisive. And some people say it's rude, actually, to talk about it. But that is the key to understanding, who we are and what we do and how we can come together. And it takes courage. My ex-husband and I are really good friends. That's a whole nother story. Married twice, divorced twice, but that's my best bud. But when I started talking about or writing these books, I was like, God, I have got to say the word slavery. How do I do that? What do I do? I have to mention it, because these characteristics of Black people are linked to that, and the behavior of whites are linked to that as well. And he said to tell the truth. So for me, it takes courage to talk about it. It takes for me to put it out there on the table, and it takes courage for other people to really listen with your heart, your head and your heart. So courage is the key to understanding and listening to this story about our history and not erasing it. It does not bring us closer together to erase this history and not talk about it. Everything we do in America, particularly with US born Black people, is so important to understand this. One more thing, we place a lot of value on psychology in this country. It has become part of the standard and the norm. You know, there are online psychologists now. I think Michael Phelps, the Olympic swimmer, is an advocate and a spokesperson for mental health and for getting help with psychology. And the practice of psychology and psychoanalysis includes understanding the history to understand where you are today. So that becomes the norm, except when it comes to Black people and talking about our history. So we need to do it. It's difficult, but it takes courage on both sides of the aisle. So thank you, Maury. So Jean focused on primarily the financial area, which is so important, the wealth gap. But oftentimes it's, and I talk about these blind spots that we have. Yeah. And one of the blind spots that we have is a misunderstanding that we are not post-racial. So Black people have come a long way since civil rights. I mean, we have this law, but civil rights isn't, I don't even think it's 60 years old yet. And so we were enslaved longer than, you know, we've had civil rights. So, but people look at a Jean Axios and a Barack Obama and Michelle Obama and Rosalind Brewer, who was the CEO of Walgreens, or Ken Chenault, who was the CEO of American Express for 17 years. And what they failed to understand is that Black, brown, and poor people, and particularly Black people, because we are the largest group and the longest group of people, they're doing some work on my house, it may get a little noisy. They're the largest group of people that have been discriminated against. But we are still navigating through broken system, education, broken, housing, broken, finance, as John mentioned, broken, healthcare, broken. And of course, the justice system is broken. And so those are huge barriers to the success of Black people. And again, brown people and poor people as well. So misunderstanding the progress of some people who made it through a funnel. When you think about Black people and what our opportunities are, we have a funnel versus others who may have an opportunity of a 3 or 4 lane highway. And it doesn't mean that poor whites or white people in general, or other groups have not struggled. These barriers impact us more and often, and they go deeper, primarily with the Black community. So navigating these broken systems tend to be a huge barrier towards success. So when society says, what's wrong with them? How come they aren't like Oprah? How come they aren't like LeBron? Those are some of the questions where people are not asking why, and I'm glad you brought that up, John, enough. And this conversation isn't meant to be punitive or finger pointing. I just want to say that it's just some ideas that people don't understand about what's happening with this segment when they look at people who have made some progress, who appear to be successful, and they don't understand what's wrong with the rest of us. I love being Black. I love my culture. We are colorful. We are loud. We are emotional. We are funny as hell. It's also exhausting because most of us think about Blackness 90% of the time. If we're going to, I was telling you, I did some work with the symphony orchestra, and they were like, the Black people aren't coming to the symphony. And now they said that the symphony was a place where even white people said it was very white. But wherever we go, many of us, not all of us, we tend to look for each other all the time. We're looking, especially in spaces where we're not there, we're looking for each other. And we're also looking, so we're looking for representation, and we're looking for positive realism, particularly when it comes to advertising and marketing, and not stereotypes, not, Black people, we being dragged to this country, we have the stereotype of less than. If you're Ken Chenault or Rosalind Brewer or John Axios, that less than is still there in terms of how society perceives us. And a big part of the Black culture or multicultural marketing, multicultural culture, Black, brown, Hispanic, and LGBT is countering negative stereotypes. Negative stereotypes, that's kind of oxymoron, but countering stereotypes. It's a big part of our experience. It's the nucleus of our experience. So we're thinking about this all the time. And what do we do? How are we being received? How are we being welcomed? Are we present? It's just always, always there. And it can be exhausting. It can be exhausting. And that's something that other segments, particularly the white segment, they don't necessarily have to think about that all the time. It's beginning with why and asking yourself why. I talk about how I, as a qualitative researcher doing focus groups, was flying around to the major markets where Black people live, New York. I live in Chicago, DC, Philly, and admiring all these buildings of the skyline. I love that. But asking myself why, or thinking how Black people own none of that. We own none of that, but we helped to create that. And so why, where are we now? So beginning with why and asking yourself some questions with why. Also educating themselves, even though there are a lot of books that are being banned today, there are a number of books, my books, and wonderful stories. I think The Warmth of Other Suns by Isabel Wilkerson is wonderful.
That and Caste and those two books are
wonderful to help
profound.
you understand. It's about the Black migration, and she chronicles 3 people's lives, and she talks about their lives in the South and why they wanted to get away from that with the hopes of finding a better life in other places, in the North, in the East, and in the West, and how it wasn't really better, but what they went through, so that you can understand what's happening and the years of why, some of us are behind. We are behind because we're supposed to be behind. We are, Black people are behind because we're supposed to. But understanding those things and educating yourselves and reading and using your voice and your actions as Jean mentioned, to use your voice and action to do something. It's like seeing somebody laying on the sidewalk who's bleeding and I didn't do it, and stepping over them and not doing anything. We're still culpable if we do nothing. So if everyone does a little something, we can come together. It could be, adding more fat to your brain, or preventing the pole from being tased. I love that story. It could be something very, very simple that we could do to make a difference. Using your voice, educating yourself, reading, and asking why. We have to have more people in the market research industry that look like me and that understand Black people. The research industry is notorious for not being inclusive. It's shameful. It really is. I am one of 3 raisins in a bowl of vanilla ice cream. I mean, it's really bad. It's really, really bad. So, doing research based on a standard, on a mainstream standard, and this helps other segments as well, not just Black people, but we have to change the way we're doing research. We have to make the questions, the tools relevant. We have to make the experience relevant. When you think about focus groups, for example, in person or online, the person is typically recruited by someone white. They are greeted by someone white. And the respondents have participated in enough groups to know that they are being observed by people who don't look like them. So with Black people, we have to invite them to be Black. I think we need to do that for Hispanic, for Asian, and not necessarily, you know, in language. I mean, that's important to have, you know, in language, but even those that don't speak the language, we have to invite them to be comfortable with themselves, because these segments will tell the truth, but they don't tell the whole truth because they're trying to fit in. And again, that's part of that, you know, exhaustion, trying to fit in. Even though you ask people to tell their truth, they don't always tell the truth because they're like, what's happening here? Well, you know, what's going on here? So making sure that market research is more inclusive in terms of the people, in terms of the tools that we use, it's gotta change. It's gotta be different. The intentional, that's going to be my new word to include in my presentations. I think that's very, very powerful, and it sums up a lot of things. That does take people out of their, I mean, of the fear of not doing anything, but to be intentional. That's a wonderful word. Thank you so much. As a researcher, I just tell the truth. I used to be kind of a hard ass, pardon me. I did. I was a little too hard when I came on to people with the, you know, that doesn't work. So, but I tell the truth, but I tell our stories. I tell our stories about who we are and what we believe to help people understand, without pointing the finger at, you did this and this is your fault. This is kind of who we are, our beliefs and behavior. These are these characteristics. This is all lined up this way and that way. Here's some examples. Those videos that you showed, I show those videos all the time. And that's my research way. But I'm interested too in what Jean would have to say as a senior executive in the C-suite. What do you say to executives as well?